Hello, everyone. My name is Tim deBoer. I'm an architect working on cloud development tools at Red Hat. I'll be hosting our panel discussion today. Our discussion is on Theia, past, present, and future. I'm joined by three guests, and I'll ask you each to introduce yourself quickly. Jonas?
Yeah, I'm Jonas. I already gave a talk today. Welcome back. I'm working for EclipseSource, a company building tools and IDEs for our customers, and I'm also a Theia project lead.
Hey, Matthew?
Hi, I'm Matthew Khouzam. I am a developer or product owner at Ericsson, and I've been with Eclipse for about 10 years now. I have the privilege of being on the board of directors of the Eclipse Foundation, and I'm also very lucky to be the co-lead of CDT.cloud, where I get the chance to play with Philip, the guy that just presented.
And Hans-Ake?
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Hans-Ake Gustasson. I am from ST Microelectronics, where I am a project manager in one forward-looking project, which is making heavy use of the Theia technology.
Okay, so let's jump right into it. I'll start with hopefully an easy one for you guys. What is your favorite thing about Theia today? Start with the present. So Matthew.
Okay, so my favorite thing about Theia, and it might seem a little odd, is that there's a really good community. If there's anything that needs to be fixed, it gets fixed really well. And honestly, I've been daily driving Theia for about 2 years now, and it just works. It works for my needs. And like I'm developing in all sorts of things on the side, but also I see that internally within Ericsson, people are developing and it's working well.
Okay, anyone else want to jump in on that?
I can just add a slightly different dimension maybe. So one thing that I appreciate a lot is the ability to extend the functionality in Theia, both through the regular Visual Studio Code extension mechanism and also through the Theia extension, so that you can extend the core functionality. So the combination of those two, I think, are great.
Yeah, maybe to add a third thing from my point of view. So I share the other two aspects, but one thing that I particularly also enjoy is the ecosystem in Theia as a project is still very young and slim. That means we can currently, in a pragmatic way, build up things that address directly the needs of adopters, like, for example, the community release that we just established. So it's not the same for 20 years, but really can create new things and watch what adopters need and directly address that in a very fast way.
Okay, so sticking with the present, what do you guys think is the most significant thing that's been added to Theia this year? And Hans-Ake, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I would say the support for multi-window functionality. That's my favorite improvement of the year.
Yeah, Matthew?
Yeah, I would like to add for that, and it's not one feature per se, but it's a set of features. There has been this new focus and strategy regarding the VS Code API compatibility and a new focus on it. Now, Jonas had on his slide 9 of his talk a beautiful curve where it was going like this for the VS Code API gap, and it's like upwards inflection and then a downward spike. The fact that we're all in the community guiding or aiming ourselves properly like that is very, very inspirational.
And how important is VS Code compatibility to Ericsson and what you're doing with Theia?
So VS Code compatibility is very important. I would not just say for Ericsson, but for pretty much all developers. Theia without any plugins is kind of useless in the sense that, you know, if you have 0 plugins, you have an editor. And people need the features like syntax highlighting, like proper analysis, debugging, even if you're feeling extra spicy, trace viewing. These features are needed. Yeah.
I would like to mention another importance of this compatibility, because I believe it actually allows the Theia team to focus on platform aspects. because with this compatibility, we can actually just reuse a lot of existing features that are out there, like all these language servers, language tools, and everything that is already there. And we can basically keep the platform slim. There have been even some features that have been originally developed in Theia, but we dropped them later on because there was a good VS Code extension to cover that feature. And everything that makes the core platform slimmer takes away maintenance work from the contributor team and allows us to work on things that really make a difference, like, for example, the multi-window or toolbar or things like that. So I think that's another aspect why this compatibility is so great and important.
Okay. Going in that vein, what do you think are the most interesting things that are currently in the pipeline coming for the Theia platform? Matthew, jump in.
Yeah, so I'm going to give a shout out to Paul Maréchal, who is working on a multiple VSX way of working for Theia. Now, VSX is our way of importing VS Code plugins. And he is developing a system so that you can have multiple repositories or registries with plugins, which means that from an Ericsson point of view, or from any large corporation point of view, you can have your internal plugins in one marketplace, and you can have the open source on a different marketplace, and that way you can work on securing them properly, one or the other. And you don't want to leak your internal IDs onto just any old network. So this is a very interesting feature for UX and security.
Right. If I may add just some things there. First of all, I second everything you said, Matthew. Would be a great improvement to have such a feature. I come back a bit to the multi-window support because I would like to see it even further improved, even though we have it in place. It would be great to have more features there. Another thing that we also, I think, should focus a bit more on is to begin to maybe more regularly measure the performance, and then as an extension to that, try to improve or optimize the performance based on those input data. Yes, that's what I want to add.
Yeah, I would like to second that. That's actually a very common problem that we observe, especially when going to cloud hosting. So I think I foresee that work will be done in even decreasing the memory footprint. And I think, as Maximilian mentioned in his talk before, the memory footprint of Theia barebone is surprisingly low. It's actually very low, super slim. But as soon as you start some additional features, then it gets high, and it's, I think, an unsolved problem how to deal with that if you really have a lot of cloud-based workspaces.
Yes.
Sorry, going back to what Matthew said, I think the open VSX or VSX repository is a very interesting one. Allowing companies not having to host all of the extensions themselves, but here's our internal ones, but defer it for the full set to the public. And I think that kind of rounds out all the possible scenarios you could have. We already support hosting an internal repo or registry. So yeah, it's an interesting one. And so Theia has been, popular in a number of areas, but the embedded space is one where we've seen a lot of adoption. So I'm wondering what your views are on, why we see quite a strong focus in that area, and who wants to take that one?
Who are you pointing at?
I can start. Yeah, sure. I can start. Yeah,
I was just wondering whether Matthew's, when he points at a corner of the screen, it's the same corner as on my screen. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway,
Hans-Ake.
I make a brief introduction there. Yeah. So from my point of view, I think one main reason is that in the embedded area, there is basically a cross-platform setup. So you're not like in a PC environment developing for the same machine that you are going to run on. So you're developing on one machine for another target architecture, That introduces some complexities. And then there are the target systems are often quite slim in terms of additional capacity. So many times you have bare bone systems without any operating system at all, maybe to help you. And there is also, well, all in all, I would say the use cases or development use cases are less generic than on the PC side, and that this puts a lot of requirements on adaptability on the ID. That's what I think is the main reason.
May I add, and I got to say that it's really hard to follow someone from ST Micro as an Ericsson employee talking about embedded. But embedded, it's known for having customized IDs that it actually ships its tool chain with the product. I've purchased quite a few ARM boards and have had that experience. Now, when you're doing general purpose development, you have this very narrow common denominator, but you don't have that vertical integration. Like, the memory inspector is not really useful when you have a multi-gig, like I have a 64 gig system where I develop some Python. I'm not going to be looking at my memory addresses that much there. But when you have a restricted environment, you can actually get some really interesting views because you can specialize and customize your ID solution to that. And so that's something that's pertinent in embedded, and it's also pertinent in other domains where you have custom hardware solutions, but that, as an example, would be Ericsson and its 5G antennas, for instance.
And so what other domains do you think Theia would do well in, or would you like to see a bigger community around? I think you were basically just leading there. So,
if I may start then, so I would love to see Theia penetrate the HPC market, high performance compute. Basically, there's this common programming model there, which is like MapReduce, or where you have something and then it becomes lots of threads, like 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 threads in parallel. Then they all reduce, and debugging that is a pain.
Yeah.
I could also say that this is a very common issue when you have a GPU with 10,000 compute cores. And I would argue that that's also HPC. And I would argue that this is a specialization of embedded, but where it's the opposite. You don't have restricted resources. You have way, way more resources than what your development computer has. And you need to figure out how to reduce it without overwhelming your main computer, and more importantly, without overwhelming the developer.
I would have two more areas in mind. One is classic mainframe development, because they're actually already used to host the development environment in a central way, and I think they could very much benefit from web-based technologies and everything that is related, like RPG development and so on. And another area that where I could see a lot of benefits is everything that goes in the direction of low code, like, for example, business processes and so on. So we know from the desktop there are a lot of custom tools in this area, which enable business experts or business analysts that are not necessarily software developers to add logic or data definitions to systems. So that goes in the area of modeling or declarative programming and DSLs. And of course, the automotive area, not to forget that, where we see currently a lot of interest.
I'm going to jump in and say, if there's anyone in the crowd from SDV, please call us. Please reach out to us. I'd love to play with you.
Yeah, I think the repeated theme there is Theia does very well in cases where you have an embedded device or a specific set of programming languages, and you want a custom IDE. I mean, developers normally, they're installing random extensions. They could be working on anything, but when you have, a constrained environment, Theia is, customized workflows or anything that's scoped. Theia provides a really nice solution. Yeah, any more comments on that? Okay. So let's switch to cloud-based tools. This past year, we've seen Theia Blueprint make it easy for people to take those custom tools and deploy to the cloud, to Kubernetes. What do you see as the coming challenges and the things that we can do in Theia or as a community to address them? Why don't we start with Matthew?
Okay. So I guess one of the big challenges on a corporate level, and Maximilian really did a good job explaining it. So if you didn't have a chance to see his talk, get a time machine, go back about 40 minutes and watch it. Basically, cloud level, or cloud to me means someone else's computer. Now, quite often when we had local, we didn't have to worry about stuff like payment for the computer time because you already owned that computer, you own that hardware. Now, since it's not running always on the company-owned hardware, you need to figure out whose computer you're using, how do we pay for it, how do we optimize for that payment, how do we optimize the code so that we don't end up paying $50,000 in 1 month out of a surprise. Unless it's for Red Hat, in which case it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, there, like you said, there tend to be two models. One where, like, I've already bought the compute; it's my machine, and it's whether it's on my desktop or in a cloud, it's going to go unused if I don't use it. The other is I'm paying per CPU cycle, essentially.
Yeah, and I would like to add to that. I mean, if we if we look at the current architecture of basically every web-based tool out there, on the backend part, it's not really cloud optimized yet. I mean, business application usually consists of microservices that you can deploy and that are shared between many users. And there's a lot of intelligence in optimizing them to have a minimal resource consumption and maximum performance. While, I mean, it's great that we can now run developer tools in the cloud, but what we essentially do is we kind of replicate exactly what runs on the desktop and just put it in a virtual container, which I think was the necessary first step to even enable this great improvement. But I think then what probably will happen over the next years is that this architecture is broken down a bit and that certain services, for example, are extracted from this main container, like things like compilation and so on. And we see first steps in this direction to basically optimize performance while at the same time lowering the resource consumption. And it will be necessary. I think it will be done because there's just a cost driver for that.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've been talking about that for a couple of years, but every development tool from compiler to linter has been built as single user, single workspace. It'll be interesting to see how that evolves. Hans-Ake, anything to add?
Yeah, just a few more things. So first of all, I would like to mention Theia Blueprint because that was a very good initiative from my point of view. Okay, so coming back to the big challenges, I see some pretty big challenges around end user security. So this may not be particular to the Theia cloud-based operation. It's generic when you have this kind of setup, but I mean, for something to work well in practice, you have to address those kind of how can we say, generic issues as well. So how to provide protect the end user from security breaches. That's one thing. And another thing is that it should be possible somehow to meet the need to run corporate cloud installations also on premises, not only outside somewhere in cyberspace.
Yeah. Okay. How about this coming year? Where do you see things evolving? More than 6 months out. Do you have any things you wish as a future Christmas present? Where would you like to see the community evolve?
Maybe I start. So I would wish, and I think it's promising because we kind of observe that when we look at the people who get in touch with Theia, I think that the migration to cloud and web-based tooling is still at the very beginning. There are a couple of innovative companies that have already done this step or are in the process. But if we look at what the huge number of tools that are still based on Eclipse Desktop or other similar platforms, I think the big move is about to come. And my wish and my hope would be that a lot of these people see the potential of Theia and choose it as a platform, so we even grow the community, create even more diversity, and improve Theia as a platform.
I'm going to add a very specific Christmas present that I want, but I'm cheating because I already know that it's coming, and I also am working with the people, and it's very fun. The CDT Cloud Uplift coming up is going to be really, really cool from a Trace Compass perspective, in my opinion. Like, basically, I've been using it for some hobby programming, and the new Uplift with it has a few really cool features like the debug amalgamator, but I'm watching also the progress, and I'm expecting that next year is going to be really, really hot for it.
So you're the kind of guy who looks in his parents' closets to find out what he's getting for Christmas.
At this point, I'm the kind of guy that goes la 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 while my wife asks me, "Do you want this for Christmas?" Yeah.
So you're going to have to explain what a debug amalgamator is now, though.
Well, okay, so you have your let's say you have your target that you want to debug, and you have a heterogeneous target. I'm going to give an example. Let's say that you have a nice GPU and an ARM processor or something crazy like that, and you have two debuggers and you want to connect to both. You amalgamate, you put them together. Would there be, that's my elevator pitch of what it is, so that you can have a single workflow for debugging heterogeneous hardware. But would there be a more eloquent way to put it? I'm looking at two very eloquent people right below me on the panel.
I'm fine with the definition. I think that describes it pretty well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we had debuggers 10 years ago that could debug from like Java into C code and back. You're talking about doing it across even hardware.
Across
really interesting.
Hardware with different architectures, completely different, not just instruction sets, but memory controller layouts, all sorts of things that get really funky from a low-level perspective.
Yeah. One debugger to rule them all. Debug across anything. Okay. So I think we're getting ready to wrap up. But one final question: is there a message for the community? Message, question. What do you want to say to the community? Matthew?
I'm going to say that I just saw a community question scroll by real quick.
Okay.
So I'm going to just take the opportunity to read it out loud.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you see Theia changing the future due to before unforeseen challenges like the possibility of license issues or market competition in terms of usability? Okay, so the tricky part of this question is the word unforeseen, in my opinion. Now, I see that Theia will always be changing. If it doesn't change, it means that it's perfect and that we're all out of work. But it also means that the developer's out of work because Theia is so perfect that like one click and you're already done. I would see that Theia is going to be, it's navigating this line, which is a really cool line, where you have a fragmenting marketplace where everyone wants to have their as a service. And we want to work well with these as a service people that have their proprietary software. We also want to work well with these people that are making AGPL items, a Pharaoh GPL. And so I think that Theia is that nice middle ground where everyone can come together and work. And I think that we need to focus on making sure that the community can continue working and that we can all continue being productive and solving really cool problems using Theia.
I would like to add to that. So, I mean, again, the difficult word is unforeseen, but I think for Theia as an open source project, the biggest or the best way to address unforeseen challenges is actually a good community, because the more people are in the community and the more contributors we have and the more companies basically are there in this ecosystem, the better we can address things that happen. Like, I mean, the easy thing is missing features, because then people can join and create collaborations like Blueprint, for example, or detachable windows, but also other challenges, like, for example, if a certain component cannot be used anymore and so on, and it needs to be replaced. I think the best way to proactively unforeseen things is to have a good community that is not just consisting of one company, but as many as possible, which do continuous collaboration.
Yeah, I can just add, I think you said pretty much the same thing, but for me, this isn't really a question. I mean, Theia has to change if there are new challenges, otherwise it will die. There is no option. So we have to take care of it one way or another. And I just, I see. Yes, please, Matthew.
Okay, I would like to just add also, and this is building up on what you two have said. And there's this concept that I like, but I would like to expand upon: technical debt. Now, technical debt is actually, if you look at the word debt, what is debt? It's assets minus liabilities. The community is a technical asset. We need to remember that we have huge community technical assets, because since we diversified, we have many communities already working on this. That means that we have certain slums, certain peaks, certain valleys in terms of productivity, and not everyone is subject to the same calendar, which means that we're actually able to help each other out in a very effective way. So I would just like to highlight that we do have technical assets that we can lean on, which is what Jonas was describing.
Yeah, sorry, just to add my own perspective on that. Like, I think Theia will continue to evolve, but when you look at where the market is, I think the entire IDE market has shifted in over last 5 years. I mean, several years ago now, to how we build these kind of applications, and LSPs are it. If you're building a language tool, you build an LSP and it's reusable in many cases, or in, not many cases, in any IDE. And Theia is the home right now for open collaboration on building that platform. And I don't think that's going to change. There's nobody else that's really trying to do that right now. If you want a custom IDE, with a specific set of LSPs and whatever else, again, Theia is the home. So I think absolutely it will evolve, but as Jonas said earlier, I don't think we're at the peak yet. There's still lots of things that aren't LSPs or aren't good LSPs yet, and that whole ecosystem is going to continue to evolve and grow.
Maybe that leads to my answer to the question you previously raised about what the message to the community would be. So my primary message is, if you're out there, if you're interested in Theia and you start to adopt it or use it, get in touch with the community. I think Theia is an amazingly open community. I've not seen a project that open in my 20 years of experience with open source. And there are many ways you can interact with us. Like, you can add yourself to the website, you can join the weekly dev calls, you can raise questions, you can raise issues, and of course, you can also contribute, or you don't have to. So any contact that you create with us is valued by us. We are really happy if you make yourself visible. So that would be my primary message to the community.
There are more questions coming up, I see.
Should we take one more? Is there any productivity application that's not an IDE?
Yeah.
I took the liberty of answering already in the chat.
Pardon?
I already took the liberty of answering in the chat.
Okay. Great.
Standalone trace viewer. Go to
Yeah.
Trace Compass, Yarn build Electron or Yarn build browser.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, even what constitutes an IDE has changed quite a bit. It used to be a very big, standalone, isolated program. Now we have a lot of bits that are reusable, don't necessarily have a workspace or other things that we traditionally associate.
Did
Yeah.
the stream end? We've just
Think
got the
so.
message.
Are we still on air? I don't think so.
Yes, just okay.
Okay.
Can I just have one final
Yep.
message then? So I would like to thank all the contributors that have added to Theia during the 2022. Great job, guys.
Yeah, thanks a lot, everyone. And that's the end of our panel, but we'll be back. Check the agenda for tomorrow. There's lots of other great talks coming. So thanks a lot, guys, and we'll talk to you later.